Welcome to Block 20 report coverage of the Blockchain Expo Global here in London. I'm your host Collyer, here with Nigel Brahamas from Collyer and Bristow. Thank you very much for being on the show.
My pleasure.
Well, we have been on the hunt of the best of the top 10 companies in this conference, and Collyer and Bristow is definitely one of those. Thanks very much for being with us. And can you tell us, although you're not developing blockchain technology, why is this project so important for the blockchain industry?
Sure. So we're a law firm. We are probably one of the earlier adopters here, law firms in the blockchain space. I came to this space about 3 years ago when my old background, I was a lawyer working in the financial services industry and also in fintech. And so the first client that I met when I decided to become a law firm lawyer again was somebody who wanted to create a settlement and clearing solution using the blockchain technology. And they're struggling to find a lawyer in their price bracket who they could actually afford to pay for, who understood how clearing a settlement worked. So as I actually had many years experience in this area, I took the job and it was a really interesting experience. And from there I decided that blockchain was the way to go and was potentially the most interesting technology available at the moment. And I can see massive opportunities to grow our practice in that space.
Great. Every good idea always comes from a very important problem that we need to solve, right? So can you please tell us what blockchain and crypto-specific services, legal services you provide?
Okay, so there's twofold really. So one is projects. So we have been working on some quite big projects where people are using blockchain technology to solve problems within the existing financial services and broader business space. So for example, I'll give you one example, which is at the moment when banks transact with each other, there is a 2-day settlement period between the trade date and the date the trades actually settle. So that's 2 days when something can go wrong. If one of the banks becomes insolvent, the other bank is left holding a lot of transactions which they are worried are not going to settle. The blockchain technology is so much more powerful than existing technology in that space. It can create a settlement device which happens in real time, the same day. So it reduces the risk enormously. And it's also much more efficient, much faster. You need fewer people in the back office to settle all the trades. And additionally, if you have one agreed blockchain, a private blockchain, which all the different participants agree to observe, then you just have one set of transaction record that everybody agrees with. Instead of at the moment, every bank has their own record, and it can be very confusing. They don't add up, they're not always the same, and you can end up with conflicts. So the blockchain is a massive opportunity. So that's one side. The other side is in the crypto space. That's actually something I've been seeing more recently. Even this time last year, there hadn't really been much in the way of ICO sales in the UK. But in the last 6-9 months, we've seen an explosion. So what people are seeing in the second half of 2017, more money was raised by small businesses using ICOs than in private equity. And that's quite remarkable. And I've seen this massive change. Because I advise a lot of small tech companies, and traditionally what they would do is they would go to a private equity house, a venture capitalist, seed funders, and use those people to help them fund the money to build their practice or build their product. Now they find they can use the ICO route. It's much quicker, it's probably cheaper, but there are some big regulatory hurdles that have to be overcome, and we're not there yet. We need the UK is not a bad environment to do this, but we need more regulatory certainty to make it even better.
Definitely. You mentioned a really important point about the ICO. So there are many on the works right now. What pieces of advice would you give to the startups from a legal standpoint?
That would be telling. That's what people pay us to advise them. So what we advise on is, effectively, if you're doing an ICO, is it potentially going to be a security under UK securities laws, under FCA regulation? Because if it is, then you need to be regulated, and in which case you might want to work with people like our partners here, Met Facilities, who provide a regulatory umbrella. The alternative is if you can create something which is more of a utility-based coin, it's less likely to be regulated. But there are other pitfalls under UK securities laws, like collective investment schemes, and you can inadvertently create a scheme without even knowing you're doing it, and in doing so you would be breaching UK securities laws.
Okay.
So we provide detailed advice to our clients they want to our clients want to have a written piece of advice that they can go back to and rely on, so they know that they've taken proper advice and they know what they can do, what they can't do, and we will give them very practical advice. People criticize lawyers for saying on the one hand this, on the other hand that. Because I worked in the financial services industry for so long, I worked with people who didn't like advice like that. They wanted to be told what they can and can't do. They want us to be much more precise. And so we try really hard to give people practical advice. We try also really hard to understand their product, because it's all very well just being a lawyer, but if you're a lawyer in an ivory tower, an academic, you're not going to give people the right advice. You have to be a really good technical lawyer, but you also have to have very good business skills and understand how the businesses work. A lot of the time we find that the advice we're giving is not just legal advice, but also commercial, practical advice, because we've seen so many other ICOs, so many other projects. We can actually learn a lot of lessons and see the faults in some people's plans and say, why don't you do it this way instead?
So do you think that is the biggest issue right now in the company, trying to deal with these companies in the advices that you give?
Yeah, I would say definitely the biggest issue at the moment for us, that what we're doing the most of, is advice on ICOs, because it's such a popular and such an efficient way to raise money, but the companies need to have the legal certainty that when they are getting this kind of money from investors or from people who want to buy into what they're doing, that they are not breaching a regulatory law, that they're not breaching UK regulation, they're not breaching securities laws. It's like, the example I give is a bit like, say you wanted to build a gym, and if you offered everybody a share in the gym, then you'd be creating a security, an equity security, and that would be a regulated product. But if you say to everybody, I'm building a gym and I'm going to give you 2 years free membership, free access, that would not be a security. It doesn't give them an interest which looks like a security.
Okay, yeah, I get that. So I have another question here.
Sure.
So, as there are like tax havens, there are also legal havens. So what would you say that are the hottest spots for companies to develop this?
At the moment, I would say probably Switzerland. The Canton of Zug in Switzerland is very popular for doing ICO issues because they have specific laws permitting it. Same in Gibraltar, where they have the Gibraltar Blockchain Exchange.
Blockchain technology.
Yeah, so you can do ICO issues in Gibraltar, but as long as they are access-based. Now, having said that, you can also do quite a lot of work in the UK. The UK is quite a benign environment for ICOs, and quite different to the US. The US is a very hostile environment. The US regulators have suggested that they see almost every ICO as potentially a security. And from sort of informal conversations we've had with the regulators here, we don't think that's the case in the UK. But what we would really like to see is a more established light touch regulation in the UK. That would really give us an opportunity to grow the market in the UK much further. But at the moment, the UK is not a bad environment. We'd say Switzerland, Gibraltar, Singapore are proving quite popular at the moment. But the UK is not bad, and I think with some good regulation, it's an opportunity for us.
Do you the company plans to extend his services to worldwide, or they want to focus on the UK?
We're a UK law firm. We have an office in Geneva, but really principally we are a UK law firm. We advise on English law. Okay. We work very closely with law firms in other jurisdictions, and we know the right people to talk to, say in the US or in Gibraltar. So we work closely with those law firms, so we can provide people with a seamless service. But we are an English law firm principally. But what is unusual, I find, normally with English lawyers, we just know about English law. But what we've had to do now with this, with blockchain, with ICOs, we've had to learn enough to be able to talk about laws in other countries, because the blockchains do not exist in one country. They are supranational.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else you want to share with the viewers at this time about the company?
So I can tell you a little bit about Collyer and Bristow. We are a mid-sized law firm. So we're not one of the really expensive, very big law firms just working with big corporates. We tend to work with owner-entrepreneur companies, smaller businesses, smaller regulated businesses. So typically anywhere from the sort of 1 million to 50 million turnover. So we're very much trying to help the SME end of the market, which is an exciting place to be.
All right. Thank you very much for this interview, Nigel Brahamas, partner of Collyer and Bristow. We are here reporting for the Central Media at a Global Chain Expo here in London. I'm your agent, Coda. Thanks for watching.